Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be discussing the NextGen Agile Enterprise. My name is Victoria Steed and I'm the channel manager here at Wickersoft. I'm also joined by my colleagues Richard Evans, the Director of Advisory Services, Jose Levy, our Director of Cloud Services, and Matthew Willey, our Technical Product Manager. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use GoToWebinar's question feature to submit questions. I'll address these questions during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I will be emailing a link to the presentation once it has been posted to our YouTube channel. I will now hand the webinar over to Richard.
Great, thank you, Victoria, and welcome everybody to Wickersoft's weekly webinar. Try saying that quickly. I'm Richard. I'm from Wickersoft's Advisory Services, so my job is to help people plan and execute change in sensible increments, and also joined by Jose, who is not only an Agile process expert, but also an expert in Microsoft technologies. And also Matt, who leads our product development organization as well. Now we've updated our content today to make it more relevant for you, to make it more relevant to one of today's challenges. And what we're going to focus on is some of the challenges people are facing around this question of evolving from doing some Agile to really getting some benefit out of that on a bigger scale. We're going to include an actual case study, real example, and Matt's going to be showing a solution for tying all of this together, which helps you sort of ease into solving this problem as opposed to a big bang approach. So what is the problem we are looking at? This is a very typical problem that I know a lot of you are experiencing today, and it's often characterized something like this, that in my organization, we are doing some Agile project management. And again, with the trend of everybody else, our numbers of Agile projects are increasing. We also have other types of projects like waterfall projects and other things going on too, so we have to be mindful of that. We've got lots of technology. We've got a service management tool for how we manage intake and requests for our organization, perhaps. We've got maybe one or two different Agile management software solutions, and then other project management and work management solutions all happening at the same time. And then here's where it gets really interesting, is our leadership, whether it's our business or our IT executives, are asking us to improve our business performance. And often that can come in the form of, oh, we're going to move faster, we want to be more dynamic, we need to be more, whatever it is, proactive, more focused on quality. But that's a typical set of pressures happening on people right now. And of course, that's part of our glorious age of digital disruption. And people, when faced with this, are saying, well, what do we do next without breaking anything? Because sure, we can read up on all of the Agile methods and scaled Agile methods, and there's no end of information out there, but how do you actually move into this space and address this problem in a thoughtful and without the big bang approach? So here are some suggested simple steps that can be done without having to redesign or reorganize necessarily in a dramatic way as you get into this subject. So if you like the idea of a crawl, walk, run approach, what I recommend is some kind of bottom-up and top-down approach. So bottom-up, find some representatives from execution teams and the other teams around delivery, and ask for these people to roll up a project they're working on into what I call a team of teams approach, meaning let's get into more of a cross-functional team planning situation. So commit to a real project where you can actually roll up the different silos of people into one group and start trying collective planning in that way. And also have this group, this working group, define things like your new terminology, so everyone's clear on across all of these people doing agile projects. Are we calling the same thing by the same name? What is an epic? What is a user story, etc.? And also have these people figure out the best way to do the team interactions, these periodic team interactions that are so important. And then meanwhile, we'll need to get step number 2, get leadership, of course, to act in an advisory way, to be thinking about the model for the future organization and to what extent they want to commit to Agile. You know, should it be all in? Are we going to do a bit of everything? What is that? So while we're thinking about that, both ends of the spectrum there, the top-down and bottom-up approach, can be doing 3 things that don't break anything. One is making some kind of commitment to Agile mindset, because if you look at the principles involved, which are more important arguably than the processes, it can often be a good step just to get everybody aligned around those 4 simple principles around Agile. Meanwhile, we're trying something out for real with our community of practice, rolling up a project and committing to doing one program. And we're designing some kind of future model for this and figuring out our roadmap. But number 3 in this, which is so important, is if we have executives saying, okay, let's see if maybe Agile or whatever it is will help us be faster, better, smarter. It's so important to actually put some metrics around what that actually means, because that's the whole reason for doing this in the first place. So, and that might start off with something very simple like number of releases per quarter as a measure of speed. But having an actual metric around the business strategy driving something like this in the first place is so fundamentally important. Okay, what else can we do that doesn't break anything as a first step? So borrowing some concepts from scaled Agile methodology, here are 2 things I think that are not controversial and are relevant whether you are doing any kind of method for projects. It's a leading practice, I would say, across all. So one is defining strategic themes which should guide project investments. So these are your your short list of significant strategies that are totally inclusive and mutually inclusive and exhaustive for covering all of the different strategic imperatives that may drive a project and help you prioritize. So that's one thing that can be done with leadership. And then the second thing is using that to define your portfolios. And again, at this stage, you don't have to have reorganized or change anything. This is more a question of looking a bit differently at your portfolios. Perhaps you have 3 or 4 portfolios that you've categorized by cost or something. You know, your $1 million projects are in this portfolio, your less than 1 million are in this other one. But doing this exercise will actually help you start to think about alternative ways to define your portfolios based on those strategic themes, and importantly starts getting you into thinking in a lean way about the costs and the benefits of those portfolios as well. So what are what should be our resource human resource commitment to this portfolio? What should be our budgetary commitment to this portfolio? So it gets you started in that right direction before you might then branch out into something more ambitious, such as taking the next step and then defining what Scaled Agile would refer to as value streams. Then you're in the business of reorganizing people. So before you get there, try this step. Another thing that can be done without changing anything significantly is start to practice this thing of visualizing all demand. So for executives looking at high-level strategic initiatives, this means having this visualization of every idea that comes in or is being discussed sitting in the funnel, and then us being able to demonstrate where everything is all the way through its life cycle. And one of the benefits of doing this as well is if you get into this habit of constantly showing and discussing, having visibility of all work in this way, when you start to move things into the review and analyze columns of your board, you start to then get into this other conversation around, okay, what are our criteria for determining economic value of strategic initiative or some other measure of value, and also starts getting you into the discussion around understanding your resource capacity, and most importantly, how much resource capacity or financial resource should we apply to different kinds of strategic initiatives. So that's from a executive perspective. And then similarly, from a team perspective, looking at something similar, get into the habit of starting to just visualize the work from a team point of view. And I mentioned earlier that a great way to start is to find a program that's real and active, and start trying to roll up the different projects and teams impacted that into this team of teams or scrum of scrums concept, even if that's pretty rough to begin with, and starting to do planning in increments, 8 to 12 week increments for a big program, and obviously with sprints that might be a lot shorter, 1-2 weeks or whatever. So visualization, again, safe step, starts getting you into the mindset and the flow of things before you take bigger leaps. And finally, you know, part of this at the team level is, of course, the DevOps mentality of having a way of including all the different teams involved in creating a product or a release, and putting a wrapper around them and a lot of principles of interaction around them. Now, again, this can seem a bit complicated and overwhelming, but a very simple way just to move in this direction is simply to identify those teams who are involved in a solution, including the ones you often only talk to right at the end before you hand things over to operations. Include them from the start and start getting into this habit of the face-to-face incremental planning. Okay, so there's some simple steps to start solving this problem. And I'm going to hand over now to Jose, if Jose is on to pick it up from here. Jose, are you there?
Yes, Richard, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, great, thanks. So our approach is based on, solving business problems and making your organization better. So we're always, focusing on real customer situations and proposing our solutions based on, solving that. So the first thing I'd like to do is to chat a little bit about an actual customer case study that we recently encountered, and it's not so common from a lot of organizations right now. There's Agile throughout pockets of the organization. In some cases, organizations have been at it for a very long time. You know, we happen to know and work with customers that have been doing it for a very long time. So in this case, we have a medical products manufacturer. You have a set of projects that are being done in Agile and IT, but you have a balance of other methodologies and also waterfall projects within the organization. Their goal, though, is to become more Agile and do more Agile Scrum methods. So where before they were mostly waterfall, now they're right around half Agile and moving more towards Agile. So the organization is starting to now need an enterprise Agile approach. They do have a requirement for portfolio management, combining both methods and leading more over time to this enterprise Agile concept that we're bringing here to the table. At the same time, they don't want to create a lot of disruption. While they're not averse to a change plan, a transformation, they want to make sure that they do it in step and do not create issues for the organization and trying to do wholesale change very quickly. So they want to crawl, walk, run, and do it over time. So this is representative of a lot of organizations. Again, not those that have been doing Agile transformation now for many years. If we go to the next slide, please. So together with our advisory practice, we have our solutions, and one plan is one of our solutions that we bring to the table to actually enable this capability. Richard, we showing the next slide, please? Hello?
Hi, Jose. We're looking at enterprise Agile with one plan.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I'm having a bit of a delay on my side here, so we'll. What we wanted to show is really how we are. Our solution is actually confirmed by what's going on in industry, and we just wanted to bring to the table the latest survey from Scrum Master Trends. And in terms of the actual solution, as I said, there's a couple of ways of actually using our one plan solution. The first is if you're actually an organization that has adopted Azure DevOps, we can actually embed our one plan solution directly within Azure DevOps. And really what that allows is for you to have the richness of Scrum Agile planning for teams through Azure boards, while at the same time incorporating portfolio capabilities, planning capability in different modes, because our one plan solution actually allows you to, within the same experience, to have both Agile capabilities as well as waterfall capabilities. For portfolio, the core capabilities are cost and resources, and those are features that we bring to the table through our one plan for Enterprise Agile within Azure DevOps. And then finally, the ability to obviously do all of the reporting for portfolio decision making, understanding the trade-offs once the top down and the bottom up can be brought together, as Richard showed earlier. Really, the goal is to provide an Agile portfolio management capability, and that is what one plan in this scenario with Azure DevOps provides. I want to highlight that below. If you happen to have other tools, this is kind of table stakes now, where you have to have integration capabilities to bring in from whatever other solutions might be within your organization. So there's, whatever other tools are in-house that might be used by pockets of teams, within our OnePlan solution through our OneConnect API platform, we can actually make that happen, because the idea is to surface all of the work that is being done in the organization and be able to do portfolio management of all initiatives and programs, no matter how small they are. If we could move to the next slide, it's a slightly different take on it. And instead of using Azure DevOps, you can actually use OnePlan for Enterprise Agile on its own. And really what that means is that you would then bring all other solutions that are underneath rolled up within the OnePlan portfolio capabilities, and also OneConnect. In this particular case, we have just Jira and Azure DevOps, but as we showed in the other slide, you can actually have multiple different products. So we spoke earlier about what the process is all about. Here we actually have a solution that incorporates, integrates that process, and allows you to also bring in multiple tools that you might be using, both Agile and Waterfall, to have a unified, integrated PPM experience for leadership. So Richard, I think now we're going to turn it over to Matt Willey, who's going to do a quick feature flash of the solution.
Yep, sounds good. Thanks, Jose. All right. So I'm logged in here into Office 365. This is kind of our modern portal homepage. And on my homepage here, we can link into things like, say, your documentation, templates that you might make available for people, training, et cetera, whatever you might want to link to and make it look nice while doing it. You can also tie into things like your Yammer feed. So you can see here, if you're using Yammer in your organization, we can tie feeds in so people can see what's going on in the organization, especially within the context of portfolio management, Agile, et cetera. You can put in key events, documents, so on and so forth here on the homepage. From there, I can start to dive in, and we can really go through the process from start to finish. So meaning things generally start as an idea or as a request. And so I'm going to go ahead and go into my ideas list here. And this is where people can come to put in their different ideas and requests. And those can actually be related back to challenges and or strategic themes, so that people aren't just giving you ideas on anything like, hey, I want a longer lunch. They're more focused on specific challenges and or goals that the organization has, so that we can make sure we're getting some valuable ideas and requests that move the business in the direction that we want to move. From there, and you can see these are aligned to different strategic themes and such, it really just gives a central place for these things to go, instead of in emails and in hallways and Excel spreadsheets that might be all over the place. We can have one central location where these can come into, and it's as simple as coming here and hitting new, filling out your form. That will then go into the list here. And based off of some of the choices that you make, for example, in this case, we're using WSJF prioritization. So you put in a swag and a cost delay and so on and so forth. And that gives us the WSJF ranking. And or we could do a more traditional weighted prioritization score, however you want to score these requests. This is very configurable. But these ideas can flow in, and the better ones, so to say, can kind of bubble their way up to the top. From there, if I was the person reviewing these ideas, I can flip into the quick edit mode if I want more of an online Excel spreadsheety type of a view, and I can edit it in that particular mode. So I can show this in multiple different ways as needed here. From there, I'll go ahead and go into one of these particular ideas. You can convert these into a program and or an epic/project when you're ready to do so. So, someone went in and put in this information. We may get lots and lots of different ideas. Not all of them we're going to do right away, so we don't want to cloud up our portfolio view with all of these ideas that we may not get to for a while or may never do. So this can be kind of a starting place, a funnel. But if this is one that looks interesting, something that we do think we want to do possibly in the near future, then I can use my convert buttons here to convert this into either a program or an epic. If it's kind of a larger idea for a whole new program, I would use that. If it's more of a, say, a new capability in an existing product or whatever it might be, more of an epic level item, a little bit smaller, then we could use that to convert it over. By the way, these terminologies are interchangeable. So if for you, you don't use the term epic, you use initiative or project or whatever it might be, we can configure these to match your terminology and your hierarchy of how you organize your buckets of work. So from there, if I was to convert this, then that's going to push it over into, my current list of work. And I can align those things then to different corporate strategies, into strategic themes, into programs, etc. So it kind of all rolls up together. So in this case, I'm looking at a list of all of my strategic themes. A strategic theme, a great example, for example, Microsoft has a strategic theme of cloud and mobile first. We want to make sure that we're focusing in on those parts of the market, and we want to align the different work buckets that we're doing, programs, epics, etc., to that. Right? And so if I was to click on this strategic theme, I can come in and I can see, in this case, all of the particular programs that are related to that particular strategic theme, as well as any ideas that have rolled in from the ideas list that are related back to that strategic theme as well. And so starting at the top and kind of doing some top-down planning and working my way down, I can first identify my strategic themes. I can then break those down into different programs. So down to my next level here, we can see a list of all of my different programs. And if you're doing program management types of activities, I'll go ahead and pop into one of these programs here, like my e-commerce portal development program. And from here, I can start to do some high-level program planning. Some info around this program. What's this program going to do? How much do we think this program is going to cost? We can do prioritization on it using WSJF and or multiple other methods. And at the program level, a lot of times people still need to build out a budget. How much money do we need for this program? That can be as simple as just keying in, kind of total values. I think I'm going to need $1 million, 500,000, whatever it might be. Or if you want to, you can break that out into a little bit more detail. So what you can actually see here is I've broken out my budget into capital expenses and operational expenses in different cost categories like labor, materials, travel, etc. And then I've broken that out into different quarters here. You could do this planning, though, by month or year or quarter, at whatever level of detail that you want or need at the program level. And so now we've said, okay, great. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go build this e-commerce portal development, our e-commerce portal. And here's about how much money we think we're going to need. And from there, I'm going to break this down into multiple different epics eventually. So we're now going down to the next level, and you can see the multiple epics that are related back to this program. Also, before I leave here at the program level, I can do things like track program level risks, program level issues, change requests for more money for schedule, scope, whatever it might be, types of changes at the program level as well. And even do program level status reports. How is this going? Are we doing well? Are we executing on this program, as we said we were going to? Is it being successful, right, and on track? A solution also, as was mentioned, allows you to connect to multiple other tools. So you may have noticed there's two buttons up here, open in Azure DevOps as well as open in Jira. And so if I wanted to go manage this particular program and then therefore all the epics and features and user stories and whatever they might be below that, say over in Azure DevOps, I could hit that button. That would sync it over into Azure DevOps, let me build out my backlog. And then the details that I build out over there are going to flow back in over here into this program in this case. Same thing with Jira. This particular one is actually connected up to Jira, so I'm going to go ahead and click that. And what it will do now is it'll link me over to that related program over in Jira. I can now see within that program all the things going on. We have multiple different sprints. Within that are multiple different epics. And we're going and then going to build this out and plan this and start executing on this work, which all rolls back to that epic, which all rolls back to that program, so on and so forth, all the way back up to that strategic theme and so on. And we'll see some nice reports a little bit later that show how that roll up happens and make sure that you're not, say, exceeding your budgets for your program when you're going and building out your epics and so on and so forth there. Cool. So from there, I can drop down another level. I mentioned that we can go down to the epic level. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that here. I'm going to go look at my epics view. So this is a list of all of my different epics / projects that are going on right now. I can see some quick KPIs here like overall health, budget health, schedule health, how much percent complete are we, which could be based off of points burned and or number of items and or hours if these were waterfall items. I can track other types of metrics, like lean metrics, things like release predictability, number of defects, et cetera, as well as other things like, financials and such. And so if I go into one of these epics, up front, I want to do some high-level kind of top-down planning before we even go build a backlog possibly, and before we even, agree to do this. Maybe I want to get some high-level information put in around resources and around costs. On the resource side of things, on the Agile side, a lot of times resources are going to be planned by team. So what you can see here in my resource plan is I've set up that I need team 1 for the next, say, 6 months or so. And then I need team 3 following on after that. And so maybe I need 1 or more teams for a certain period of time. And so this is allowing me to do some really high-level capacity planning out into the future, so I can make sure that, when we go to actually start on this epic, is that team going to be ready? And, how long am I going to need them for, so I know when I can start to line up other epics, and we'll see some nice views and ways to start to build out your roadmap based off of this information here in just a second. Same thing on the financial side. The business, whether you're doing Agile, Waterfall, or other, still requires you to ask for a certain amount of money, generally requires you to capitalize and or put in, break expenses out into capital and operational expenses, different categories, and generally over time, whether that's by month, by year, et cetera. Later on, you can actually use this to then go and update your forecast and or track actuals in here as well. And so at this epic level, you can build out those different details there. And then, the powers that be, steering committee and or portfolio managers, or whoever is responsible for kind of laying out the overall roadmap, can come into the analysis view here and look across all of these different epics when people are asking for these to be done, based off of those resources and budgets they're asking for, and figure out how can we really get this all done, right, with the resources and with the budgets we have. Or maybe we need to add resources, maybe we need to add budget, or push things out, or whatever it might be. And so the view we're now looking at here is a list of all of those different epics. And I can, on the right side, show kind of a timeline view of where things currently sit. These are where things are being asked to be done. And I can also see in here, metrics like, say, WSJF and budgets and so on and so forth. And the first thing I can start to do is some high-level prioritization. So if I flip to my prioritization view here, based off of the information I'm looking at, I can simply drag and drop these into priority order. So number 1 is my highest priority, number 2, so on and so forth. And so I can just drag and drop these around to line these up in the priority order that I think they should be, based off of the information that I'm looking at here. From there, just because this one is the highest priority and the next one's the second most highest priority and so on and so forth, I still have to figure out, how I'm going to line these up within our constraints. So right now you can see things are being asked to be done kind of all at the same time, but we may have some problems. And so the first aspect, the first way I can look at this is from a financial perspective. So I can pull up the financials down below, and based off of, how much budget people are asking for these particular epics, you can see that rolls up and that gives me some cross across the top. And I can create what's called a target in here. And so my target is basically my budget for, say, my whole IDT department. Maybe these are all my epics for my whole IDT department as a whole. We have $200,000 a month of budget. And so if I was to do all these projects when people are asking for them to be done, am I going to go over budget, or am I going to be okay? And you can see here there are some issues. We have some yellows, some reds, so on and so forth. And so how do I fix that? Well, there's a couple options. One is I could go to some of these lower priority epics down here at the bottom of my list, and I could simply uncheck these. And when I do so, it's going to refresh the financials down below. And you can see if I was to take out, say these 3 different epics here, I'm now under budget within, all those periods of time. So simply saying we're going to put those on hold or just not do them at all. If these are things we have to do, and it's more a matter of just when we're going to do them, Now I can recheck them here, and I can simply start to drag and drop things over on my roadmap/timeline view here. So what happens if I move this thing out 3 months, 6 months? How does that affect my budgets and such? And you can see I'm starting to get more green there, so I can start to lay out my roadmap so that we don't exceed our budget constraints. The other option is, well, what if we can get a bigger investment? What if we can get more money? And so if we're willing to do that, I can create a new target here where instead of having $200,000 a month, I now have $250,000 a month. That seems to solve mostly all of our problems except for a little bit here in February. Maybe I can move some things around to clear that up as well. So that's from a cost, a financial perspective. But the next piece of this is really from a resource perspective. And we hear this a lot all day, every day. My resources are overloaded, but I don't have a good way necessarily to look at that and to show that. And so this can help me with just that. And so if we were to do all of these different epics here, we can see where some of our problems are going to be across these different teams and such. We have some reds in here and some yellows and so on and so forth. And the reason why Team 2, for example, is over-allocated within this period of time is because they have multiple different epics that they're being asked to work on at the same time. So we got to go make some adjustments. We got to move things around, or same thing, uncheck, to say, what if we don't do this? And try to figure out how we're going to get these things actually resourced within the resources we have, and or maybe we need to bring on another team or multiple teams if we're willing to make that bigger investment to go and try to get these things done. So, before you even get to execution, before you're even building out detailed backlogs and user stories and such, these types of top-down planning capabilities can help a ton so that when you get there, you already have a high-level plan. Then you're going to go in, you're going to build out your detailed plan, say over in Jira, Azure DevOps, and make sure that you're not, exceeding your team's capacity for those user stories and so on and so forth. But this is at a much higher level before you even get to that point. So then people can continue working on those. Those are going to roll back up into your different epics. And out of all of that, we can get some really nice status reports and such. So if I jump into here, into some of our different reporting capabilities, oops, I'm going to click here, then I can come in and I can actually look at some pre-built reports out of the box that come with this solution that show all of this information in meaningful ways. Now, this is just a starting point, right? So you can change these however needed and or add and create other reports. This is actually powered by Power BI, another Office 365 application. It's connecting into all this great data and giving us some great reports. So the first one I'll show here is our health summary report. And basically what this is my different strategic themes broken into my different programs, and then those different epics/projects below it, the status of all of those, the information like the lean metrics that we talked about, the budget information. And so we can give this to our stakeholders, to our managers, et cetera, who need to get some quick visibility into how we're doing across our portfolio, right? These kinds of things can be really challenging if you're just using more of an execution tool like, say, a Jira or an Azure DevOps. We're combining a couple different sets of information together to be able to give these rich reports and give people the information that they need and looking for. On top of that, this is all connected together. So if I was to click on the off-track part of the donut chart here, it now just shows me all of the different off-track items. And if I want to look at different levels, I can drill up or drill down to just see the level of detail I want. So if I drill up, now I'm just looking at my themes and my programs. It's hiding the epic detail, and or up just to my theme level there, and then drill all the way back down into what I'm wanting to look at. There are also reports in here around financials if you're more interested in that, around resources if you're more interested in that. There's even more like one-pager type status reports. If I just want to look at one particular epic at a time and see how it's doing, there are built-in reports for that, and so on and so forth. And I won't go through all of the different reports today, but those are some nice examples there. On top of that, let's say I'm a manager and I'm not working in the system every day, all day. I just want to go into Power BI to get access to all of my different reports. We can have dashboards that can combine information from multiple different systems in meaningful ways. So a manager could come in and see things like those lean metrics that we talked about, progress on the different programs and or epics that you have going on, so on and so forth here. all right from on dashboard, and they can click to drill in and get more detail as they see fit. We can also do things like share roadmaps. So based off of that roadmap we built within our constraints of budgets and resources and so on and so forth, we can now share that out in really nice, easy, readable formats when things are going to happen, how those are all lined up, color code, say by strategic theme, so on and so forth. So lots of different out-of-the-box reports you can take advantage of to get the information and the status and the visibility into the roadmap, et cetera, out to the organization and other stakeholders and managers that need that. So hopefully you can see how one plan adds that portfolio management capability on top of these agile execution tools like Azure DevOps and Jira, and allows you to do the top-down high-level planning first. Make sure you're executing on things that fit your strategies and that you're staying within your budgets and within your resource constraints before you get down to that detailed level of going and trying to execute on all the different tasks, bugs, user stories, etc. that happens. But then we can roll that all back together in a meaningful way so we can get some really nice reports on how things are going and what's going on. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Richard for just another slide or two to close, and then we'll let you guys go for the day.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. Just to recap on what we showed today, we talked about some pragmatic steps you can take as you start to scale more your use of Agile and the benefits that brings without breaking anything as you go. Matt showed you a great solution for how you can keep the lights on and keep your portfolio management running as you make this transition, rather than having to do it immediately. You can ramp up the capabilities in that technology over time. And we'll be doing more of these show and tells on that solution. Something I'd like to show you as well next is the use of boards. I talked about Kanban boards and how we can visualize work in that way as well. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Any discussions you want to have, drop a line to Jose or me, Richard Evans, or contact us through our website, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining us.